The motion sensors never went off. That's the part that still doesn't sit right with me, because we had a full perimeter grid. PIR detectors every 15 meters, overlapping fields, the kind of setup where a fox crossing the wire would light up the TOC like a Christmas tree. But that night, nothing. Clean board, green across all sectors. And yet, there were boot prints, fresh ones, leading right up to the wire and then inside. Let me back up. This was FOB Kestrel, high desert plateau in an undisclosed location. Let's just say it rhymes with Schmorden. And our mission was about as exciting as watching paint dry in a sandstorm. We were babysitting a communications relay station. The real action was 200 clicks north. We were the forgotten outpost, 12 personnel rotating on 8-hour shifts, and the most dangerous thing we dealt with was boredom and the MRE cheese that could stop you up for a week. Comms check every hour on the hour. 0100, 0200, 300. TOC, this is LP1, green and quiet. Copy LP1, steak frosty. Same script, different night. The generator hummed this constant low-frequency drone that got inside your skull, and after about month 2, you stopped hearing it consciously, but it was always there, this white noise that made everything feel slightly unreal. The smell, too, that mix of diesel fuel, COP oil, and dust so fine it got into your teeth. You'd wake up with grit in your eyes and that metallic taste in your mouth. I was on the 0200 to 0600 watch with Kowalski. Good kid, the Iowa farm boy, the kind who actually wrote letters home on paper. And we were doing our patrol around the inner perimeter, which was really just an excuse to stay awake, because sitting still in that guard tower would put you under in 15 minutes. And the moon was almost full, that desert moon that turns everything blue-white and makes shadows sharp enough to cut yourself on.
Kowalski stops walking. I mean, completely stops, mid-step, and he's staring out past the wire towards this rocky outcrop about 60 meters out. And I'm about to ask him what's up when I see it too. A figure, standing on top of the rocks. And here's the thing that made my stomach drop. It was standing in a way that didn't make sense. The rocks were uneven, jagged, the kind of surface where you'd be shifting your weight constantly to keep balance. But this silhouette was perfectly still. I mean, statue still. And it had been there long enough that we should have seen it move to get into that position, but we hadn't. It was just suddenly there. "Did you see that move?" Kowalski whispers. "No, me neither." We're both looking at it now, and I'm running through the checklist in my head. Local national, probably a shepherd, maybe military-age male conducting surveillance. But shepherds don't stand motionless on rock formations at 0230 hours, and surveillance teams don't position themselves in full moonlight where they're perfectly silhouetted. I key my radio. TOC, LP1, we have a possible opposite. And it's gone. Not like a duck down or move behind the rocks. Just gone. Empty skyline. I'm still keying the mic and my brain is trying to process the absence where a solid black shape had been 3 seconds ago. And Kowalski says, "What the fuck?" Very quietly, almost to himself, and we're both just standing there in the middle of our patrol route staring at empty rocks. TOC, disregard, lost visual. Copy LP1, you want a response key? I look at Kowalski. He shakes his head slightly. What are we going to report? A shadow that disappeared? Negative TOC, continuing patrol. We finish the route, neither of us mentions it. Back in the tower, Kowalski pulls out his deck of cards and starts a game of solitaire with hands that are shaking just enough that I noticed. I'm scanning the perimeter with the thermal optic, green-gray shapes of rocks and the heat shimmer coming off the cooling desert, and nothing out there but landscape. 0300 comms check, green and quiet. 0330, Kowalski nudges me and points at the security monitor, the one showing the camera feed from the north wire. There's something on the screen,
A heat signature, but it's wrong. It's all wrong. Because the heat signature isn't showing up as the bright white hot of a human body. It's this dull amber, like something room temperature, something that's barely warmer than the surrounding air, and it's moving along the wire just outside the perimeter, and I'm watching it move, and the motion sensors are still green, every single one of them, silent.
I grabbed the radio. TOC, LP1, we have thermal contact north wire sector 3. Sensors are not reading, request you verify board status. Long pause. Too long. LP1, board shows green all sectors. Confirm you have visual? Thermo-visual affirmative. Contact is... I look back at the monitor and it's gone again. Just the static gray-green of the empty desert. Negative contact, lost visual again. Another pause. LP1, you boys getting enough sleep up there? And Kowalski's looking at me and his face has that expression you see on guys right before they admit something they don't want to admit. And he says, I saw it too. And I nod, and we don't call it in again because what's the point? We sound like we're losing it. Maybe we are losing it. But then the sun comes up, and we're doing shift change, and Rodriguez from the day crew is walking the perimeter before he officially takes over. This is just his thing, he's thorough. And he calls out, hey, you guys have someone doing maintenance last night? And we walk over to where he's standing by the north wire, sector 3, exact same spot where we saw the thermal signature. And there are boot prints in the dust. Not outside the wire, inside. Fresh boot prints, maybe 6 hours old based on how the dust had settled. Military-style tread pattern. Size looked like a standard 10 or 11. And they came from the direction of the wire and walked about 15 meters into the compound and then just stopped. No return prints, no prints approaching from outside. Just these 6 perfect impressions appearing inside the perimeter and then ending in the middle of nowhere. Rodriguez photographs them with his phone before anybody says anything official. I still have that photo. He sent it to all of us before they made him delete it. The CO ordered a full security review. They checked the motion sensors, all functional, all calibrated correctly. They reviewed the camera footage, nothing. They questioned all of us separately, asked if anyone had been inside the perimeter conducting some kind of prank or exercise. Negative across the board. Then they brought in a tech team from Regiment, and these guys spent 2 days going over every inch of our security system. And their final report, which I saw a draft of before it got classified, said that the equipment was working within normal parameters and that the boot prints were likely the result of patrol activity inadequately logged during shift change. Bullshit. I know every pair of boots in that unit. That tread pattern didn't match any of them. Rodriguez compared his photos to everyone's boots while the investigation was happening, and there was no match. And when he tried to bring this up to the investigators, they told him to stop creating alternative scenarios and that the matter was closed. 3 weeks later, we got rotated out, and the whole FOB got decommissioned within a month. Said it was a cost-cutting measure. Said the relay station was being integrated into a newer facility. They scattered our unit across 3 different posts. I ended up in Germany. Kowalski went to Bragg. Rodriguez got sent to some admin posting in Kuwait. I tried to ask Rodriguez about the photos last year when I ran into him at a conference in Virginia Beach. He said he didn't know what I was talking about. Looked me right in the eye and said, man, I don't remember any weird shit from Kestrel. It was boring as hell out there. But his hands were shaking when he said it. Same way they shook that morning when he was photographing those prints. And he changed the subject real quick and didn't give me his new number.
I still think about those boot prints sometimes. How they just appeared. How they just stopped. How something walked 15 meters into a secure military compound without triggering a single sensor, without showing up on a single camera, and then either vanished or walked backward in its own footprints so perfectly that it didn't leave a trace. but mostly I think about that figure on the rocks and how it stood so perfectly still in a position that should have been impossible to hold. And when it disappeared, there was no movement, no transition, just presence and then absence, like a light being switched off. I don't tell people this story anymore because nobody wants to hear it, and I don't like the way they look at me when I do. But sometimes, late at night when I'm pulling guard duty, even now, even stateside, even in places that are safe, I find myself scanning the perimeter and thinking about how our entire security apparatus, all that technology and protocol and training, depends on the assumption that threats follow predictable patterns. And I wonder what happens when something doesn't.